Tournament Zoom. Raise your hand and we'll start with questions from Coach. We'll start with Ryan and Ben.
I think you said before Mississippi State that whichever of the four starters didn't start will start on Wednesday. Is that still the case? You expect Blade to start tomorrow?
Yeah, right now that's the plan. We've kind of set those guys all up for playoff mode, and you got to keep some sort of a throwing program or schedule, but you also got to be ready to go at the drop of a hat. So we don't even know who we play yet. Right now, that's the plan, but we'll kind of reserve the right to cement things for game day, if that makes sense.
Tony, do you have a plan for the rest of the week, and how do you, in terms of the pitching, and how do you balance going for the SEC tournament title, but also kind of setting yourself up for next weekend in the regional?
Yeah. For us, I mean, again, routines are nice, but you can't be a slave or be owned by your routines because, like this week, for instance, rain is going to interfere, or at least lightning will at some point with the schedule. So playoff time in particular, you got to always be on your toes. In a perfect world, we would just kind of keep things in sync with what we had going on at Mississippi State. And that would be Dolander on Thursday. Burns would be set up for Friday, which is if we're around game, and then Saturday for Beam. I would be honest with you and tell you what we would like to do before we leave Hoover is get each one of those guys in a game. So a lot of that will be dictated by how game one goes, and then game two, so on and so forth. And then while we're fortunate enough to know that we were going to play in a regional at some point during the regular season, the only topic we've ever really talked about is, again, these freshman arms. We'd like them to be able to kind of run through the finish line wherever that is, and not fall over or tilt over at the finish line. So that's kind of why we did things that weekend against Georgia, but we've put that in the rearview mirror. And I feel like partly because there's been some minor injuries and we've got some depth. We've been able to keep guys active, but also not wear guys out, if that's the best phrase to use. So for now, it's just kind of go time and try and win Wednesday's game as best as you can, and worry about tomorrow, because for each team in the country, you don't know if and when tomorrow will come.
We'll go Mike, Dan, and Ryan.
Yeah, Tony, what are the most important things for you guys to get out of Hoover? Is it running through winning a title? Is it just keeping the pitching fresh? What are the things that you kind of prioritize this week?
Yeah, in my mind, it's play good baseball. That's three very boring words, but it's kind of what has stuck in my mind in particular, and what I've gotten out of our few conversations we've had as a coaching staff with it. I would say postseason experience would be number 2 on the list for younger guys. It's just different. And I think Doe's been in his conference tournament before, and some other guys, I've seen action at the JUCO World Series and things like that. But it is just different to experience this SEC tournament. And it is like a playoff vibe for, a regional or anything that would follow that. So I think dipping your toes in the water there for those young guys would be the other thing. And then third, and I'm doing this one off the cuff, is just continue the preparation part of things. Obviously, during this time of year, we can't do anything crazy at practice. We're not going to introduce anything incredibly new. But one backbone of the team has been how they approach the weight room, how they approach, any extra work that's available or the work that's mandated within a practice. It's kind of been the same every day. And I won't lie to you, it's not like they're geeked up or jacked up every day for BP or anything like that, but they're also not, absent or absent-minded from any of that. It's been a kind of a loose, fun group to be around. At the same time, they kind of take care of their work each day, and you'd like to see that continue as well.
Dan?
Tony, it's this time of year where, with Hoover and then the regional College World Series coming up, double elimination, you get to the winners bracket or losers bracket. So it's a lot different, like you mentioned. Earlier this year, you played out in Houston against good competition in a round robin format. Would you like to see maybe going forward a tournament early on in the season with double elimination, have a losers bracket, just to kind of see what your team's like earlier in the year? have played in something like that before you get to the postseason at the end of the year?
Yeah, I think just going to those things like we did in Minute Maid does help you because, you want to be the best team there, or you want to be with the best team out of the teams that you play. We didn't play UCLA, for instance, in Houston, but it is a round robin, as you mentioned. You can set your pitching. There's no kind of ifs or if necessaries or any of that. I have played in some tournaments where there is a championship. I don't think I played in one where there's double elimination. I think that would be tough to do, at the beginning of the year. But what I would like to directly answer your question for the future is I would love to help host one of those tournaments with the new Smokies Park downtown and Lindsey Nelson Stadium. You could have two tremendous venues in a great city, fairly warm weather. I mean, for February or March, no matter where you go, it's a little bit of a flip of the coin, but warm enough weather to attract teams to something like that and have a championship or a final. I think for a lot of reasons that would be an awesome event. And to get to your point, I think it would help you ladder on down the road. But the thing that prepares you most is this league. I mean, if you look at who's been able to play in the finals in Omaha, or success in the regional or regional bids, or just how teams do in general in the postseason, you're forged in iron by this time of year. I don't care what your seed is in Hoover. You just are by the play in the conference, the media in the conference, the fan bases, the facilities you play in. It does it to you, and it helps you in the long run.
You obviously mentioned you don't know who you're going to play on Wednesday, but it's been a while since you've seen Ole Miss and Vanderbilt. Does anything stand out that's changed with those two teams since y'all last faced them?
Yeah, different. The lineups are going to be different. And then even for, at least like you said, we played them earlier in the year. The rotation has changed a little bit, and you also don't know who's going to pitch who. I mean, I ran into Sonny, on the elevator and congratulated him on his award. And I said, who you guys going to face tonight? He said, I don't know. And so that's kind of how it goes this time of year. So there'll be some question marks just in general going into it because it's a tournament game. But also, as you mentioned, they're going to be different teams, and we've got some things that have, changed a little bit too.
Go with Ben.
Tony, when Luke and Evan decided to return, I imagine that you knew that you were getting their power back, but did you envision them both hitting 314 for the entire length of the season? And just going into the postseason, it seems like they're continuing to get better and better as the season progresses.
Yeah, I mean, I think you knew you were getting a lot of things. It would have been tough to predict some of those numbers. But the one thing, like the Johnson game, he's sticking it on us pretty good down there in Starkville. And the reason we got to him at the end wasn't because we figured something out or there was a great strategy. The guy was worn down. He wasn't the same as he was maybe in the fifth inning. And it's because while we were making outs and we were only scoring one run up to that inning, the at-bats were fairly grueling, and a lot of them at the least were competitive. So in a way, we kind of got to that moment before we got to that moment. Well, the two best guys in our lineup at doing that are Evan and Luke. I mean, the numbers say it, but also just if you know the kid and you watch the at-bat and you're kind of in tune to more of how competitive or how good of an approach is this at-bat as opposed to does he get a hit or not, those two guys embody that. So that's what we knew we were getting on top of their leadership. And there's a carryover effect. I think there's a carryover effect from last year's team to this year's team. And then guys like Chris Moore and Blake Burke, they watch how Evan Russell and Luke are in the box, and they're going to copy certain things. They're going to be true to who they are as an individual too, but they're going to emulate that a little bit. And no better two guys to emulate.
Go Wes and then Ryan.
Tony, I know that I'm sure with the standard y'all have set, there's a consistency that this team has had, and not every weekend or every game has gone exactly the way that you wanted it to go. But generally speaking, the consistency has been, I think, probably pretty good relative to what most seasons are. What's been the key to that in terms of keeping guys from kind of swinging back and forth like guys do in most seasons?
Well, I like if we're going to try and pat the coaches on the back, I like the fact we've kept our little deal we've got going on where we've got some younger coaches that know what Frank and myself are looking for and they can translate it better to the younger guys because they're younger. They were really good players, and some of them have played in the program or at least been coached by us. And they're kind of more the conduit of always being around those guys and keeping them centered, kind of relaying what they think the theme of the day needs to be. And also getting feedback from those guys. Like, I mean, this hasn't come up, but just, one of those guys may be more likely to tell Ricky legs are tired. We need to back off that day from running or something like that. So that's been huge. But ultimately, especially this time of year, what goes on in the locker room and in the hotel rooms and all that is so much more powerful than what goes on in the team meeting. And you got guys like Evan and Drew that are obvious leaders. But then you look at Cortland and it's like, man, this guy's a leader. And then Trey Lipscomb holds court every meal we have, in a conference room. His table's always full and he holds court. And Luke and Redmond's age, it's just, we have a bunch of different leaders on this team, and each one of them has their own special kind of shtick or niche that they have. But I don't think we have one or two captains. I think we got a bunch of guys that are really good leaders, and they've helped maintain what you're talking about.
This new era of the transfer portal, just how beneficial is it for a recruiting tool to point to what Chase was able to do in his first year here?
I think that part's big. That part is big because if you're going to move on, a lot of these kids think the grass is oddly greener, and it's not necessarily like that. Now, for some guys, the factors may be there, and it may be the best thing for them to get a new environment. And even if it's a kid that leaves our program or a kid we didn't get, when we recruited them or something like that, it's nice to see when a kid finds his true home where it's going to work best for him. And for Chase, it worked out, and now we can put that on display. Like, if you do think the grass is greener, that means you want to fulfill more potential or be as good as you can be, and we can, point to that as an example. And yeah, it is a new age. I think, if anything, it's gotten kind of chaotic. So we'll see how this summer goes. But I think for every program out there, that deal could be more active than it's ever been.
Rick?
Internet trouble early, so sorry if you answered this already, but what does it mean to have these couple days and watch these games unfold today before you guys go at it tomorrow?
Yeah, no, new question, and it's a good one. I think Starkville was incredibly humid, and it's just a weird spring. Like, we didn't get you didn't get the heat, at any point that you thought you'd get at a lot of different places, including our own place. It was warm, but you never got that where it was hot. And this last weekend was very emotional. We had the one game that was long, and you're celebrating a lot of runs. And then we had one of the biggest wars or battles we've had all year long. And then the Saturday game was just long. It just was. We used a bunch of pitchers. It was just a long game. So I don't know if it's your exact answer, but in my mind and the other coaches, the best thing is to get a few days to kind of recover from last weekend. And then, yeah, it's maybe an advantage to watch, see things unfold. But last year we did that when we played Alabama, and Alabama could have argued, well, we got to play on Tuesday. So you kind of carry that momentum from a win, and repetitions and getting familiar with the park into Wednesday. So all in all, this time of year, I think with what's going on, I think it's great for us to get a few days to kind of get ready, prepare, and then hopefully put our best foot forward on Wednesday.
Thanks, Tony.
You bet.
Troy?
Tony, so much is made of the competitiveness of this team. Is there something to be said for finishing as a runner-up a year ago? And have you sensed a vibe that the guys want to come back here and try and win this thing?
Yeah, there's probably a little bit of that. There hasn't been talk around me. There may have been talk amongst the guys, and you'd be crazy if you weren't on that team to experience. Dude, I'm just telling you, like, the national anthem is insane. Our fans showed out. I mean, to match Arkansas's baseball fan base is an insane deal in itself as well. And then the game. So you want to be a competitor and have that back in your mind a little bit. But I haven't heard any scuttlebutt, and I think this group has really almost kind of gone out of their way to carve out the niche of, we are the 2022 team. Last year's team was fun. We've got guys from last year's team. People really liked last year's team. It was successful, but last year's the phrase that I keep bringing up that's attached to that. This is the here and now group. And it's amazing. Some of it's organically happened, but also, like I said, they kind of had a little edge to them early in their time together of, hey, we're tired of hearing about last year. Look, this is this year's group. So hopefully that makes sense. And sorry for, they set me up with a really nice hotel room, but I got the squeakiest chair in America. So I'm trying not to move as I talk here too.
Coach, it's time for one more question if anyone has it.
Yeah, I do. Coach, you had talked about Jared Dickey. Maybe at some point you might be able to use him with a few ABs in the postseason. Where is he in your hopes to kind of get him there to be able to help you out?
He's doing everything possible. I mean, we took him to cryotherapy. Holy cow, is that cold? But we've done he's got a boot, that he can wear and still make athletic movements. We've exhausted everything, and he's really put attention to detail to it, and it has all paid off, is why I'm telling you. I think he's in a really good spot right now. So he's on the active roster for this tournament. It'll be in, 50-50 on decision making. If you ask me, my opinion about, myself, the other coaches will have input too. So we'll try and pick the best time to do it. But maybe he makes an appearance this weekend. If not, I think he'll be available for the regional. I do think there'll be some limitations defensively and base running. But as we all know, Jared in the box is a good weapon for us. And then I think everyone's just anxious to see, he's always smiling, so it's in the dugout, but it was fun to watch him play during that period because of the whole story and who he is. So I think the guys are kind of yearning for that a little bit too.
Coach, thank you very much for your time. Everyone, we appreciate you, and we will see you in Hoover tomorrow if you make the trip. Thank you, Coach.
You bet. Thank you all. Take care.